"Get out of my lobby. This place isn't for people like you." Those words weren't a slip of the tongue. They were policy, blunt, cold, and clearly memorized long ago. David Harrison, the manager of the Aurelia Grand Hotel in downtown Seattle, stood behind the front desk with his arms folded, judgmental eyes fixed on her. He didn't whisper, he didn't hide. He spoke loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you are watching from. Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. He looked her up and down, the black woman in simple attire, and immediately decided she didn't belong in this luxury establishment. What he didn't know was that in exactly 5 minutes, the woman standing before him would be firing him and his entire staff right here in the lobby, where he had intentionally humiliated her in front of everyone. The main doors swung open. A young woman entered, dressed extremely plainly. She wore a plain black blouse and unremarkable shoes. No designer bag, no flashy jewelry. Yet each step she took radiated absolute confidence, a powerful aura that made the heads turn twice. This was Imani Jackson, the formidable CEO behind the prestigious Aurelia hospitality chain, but today she left her title at home. She approached the desk slowly and politely. As she neared, the skeptical gazes of the receptionists snapped to her. At the center stood David Harrison, handsome but icy and proud. Beside him, Chloe Vance and Ben Carter, two young front desk clerks, watched wearily. When Imani stopped at the desk, an oppressive silence fell over the space. She spoke, her voice calm, polite, yet crystal clear. "I have a reservation for the penthouse suite. The name is Imani Jackson." David didn't answer immediately. His eyes swept her body with blatant contempt. Other guests began to notice, conversations hushing, as curious glances settled on her and the receptionists. He leaned forward, his tone dismissive, yet audible to the entire lobby. "Are you sure you're in the right place? The penthouse suite isn't for people like you." Those cutting words sparked a murmur of gossip across the lobby. Chloe smirked with derision, while Ben feigned interest in his computer screen. Though the silence lasted mere seconds, to Imani, it felt like an eternity. She tilted her head, meeting David's gaze without flinching, only calm resolve and confident defiance in her eyes. "Maybe you ought to check your system before you say something like that," she replied, her tone gentle but firmer. David let out a mocking chuckle. "No need to check. I know my clientele. Clearly, you are not one of them." His declaration hushed the lobby. Imani remained silent, noting Chloe's contemptuous curl of the lip and Ben's deferential glance toward David. A few guests grew uncomfortable. Some pulled out their phones to record. Imani sensed the tension rising, but did not waver. After a moment, she spoke again, this time with icy precision. "I suggest you pull up my reservation one last time, or you'll regret those words." David stood unmoved, arms still crossed, eyes challenging. "I have no reason to. You should leave before we call security." Imani did not raise her voice or hurriedly defend herself. Instead, she slowly retrieved her phone, never averting her gaze from David. "Mr. Harrison," she said clearly, "you just made the biggest mistake of your career." Her measured words seemed to freeze the lobby. Other guests watched in silence, uncertain what would happen next, but all understood this. The unassuming woman before them was not to be underestimated. At the far corner of the lobby, Ava Miller, a well-known travel blogger, began capturing the scene on her camera. Whispering to her friend Leah Miller, she said, "It looks like we're witnessing something far bigger than a simple misunderstanding." Little did she know those whispers would soon prove prophetic. The woman standing at the desk owned the entire Aurelia chain, and in just a few minutes, those who had dared to demean her would pay the price with their careers. Imani remained standing, her cold gaze locked on David, the air between them growing denser and more suffocating than ever. The light from the crystal chandelier above washed faintly across David's face, accentuating the smug irritation etched in his features. Imani didn't need to raise her voice or make a scene. Her powerful silence was enough to unnerve him. Finally, to shatter the oppressive quiet, Imani slowly set her phone down and reached into her pocket for a compact leather wallet. She gently withdrew a sleek black credit card, her name embossed in gleaming silver letters along with a simple but elegantly designed ED. David looked at the two items as if they'd arrived from another planet. Reluctantly, he took them, suspicion and malicious doubt written all over his face as he scrutinized every letter on the card and ID far more closely than necessary. "Miss Jackson, right," David drawled, deliberately stretching out her last name as though it were a joke. "I'm sorry, but I don't recall seeing this name on our VIP list." Another wave of murmurs swept through the lobby, louder and more pointed this time, as curious guests watched the scene unfold. Seizing the moment, Ben Carter, still hovering just behind David, spoke up, eager to show blind loyalty to his boss. "Mr. Harrison, we should double-check our records," he said, his tone dramatic rather than sincere. Ben snatched the card from David's hand with a brusque flourish. This card looked suspicious. David gave a cold, triumphant smile and turned back to Imani. "You understand, this is just standard procedure. Guest security is our highest priority." Before he could finish the sentence, Chloe Vance lifted her phone to the walkie-talkie at her belt and called out loud enough for all to hear. "Security to the front desk immediately. We have a guest requiring urgent ID verification." All eyes snapped back to Imani. Some guests shook their heads in silent disapproval but dared not intervene. Ava Miller continued filming, her face a mask of outraged disbelief at the blatant injustice. Meanwhile, Ben carried Imani's precious black credit card over to the small safe built into the reception desk. With a crisp click, he opened it, placed the card inside, and locked it again. Each gesture was staged for maximum humiliation. "We must retain this card for verification," he announced. "It's our anti-fraud policy here at the Aurelia Grand." Imani fixed Ben with a steely stare, her anger perfectly controlled beneath her calm exterior. She stepped closer and spoke, her voice low, but every word audible. "Consider this your final warning, Ben. You will pay dearly for this decision." Ben blinked at her intensity, but quickly recovered his arrogant posture, chin raised. "I'll remember your warning, Miss Jackson, but right now you have no authority to threaten me." At that moment, a team of security officers entered the lobby and formed a line behind Imani, awaiting David's orders. The tension peaked as David raised his hand to signal them forward. "Miss Jackson, you may step outside now, or we will be forced to take more drastic measures. This is your final warning." But instead of backing down, Imani offered a faint, icy smile, sharp as a blade. Her gaze swept over Chloe and Ben before settling on David's smug face. "You will regret this. Don't say I didn't warn you." Each word landed like a prophecy of a storm about to break over them. Yet David, Chloe, and Ben didn't realize they had just unlocked the door to their own downfall. Imani was no ordinary guest. She was the true power behind the Aurelia chain they served. As Imani stood in silent command, Ava and her friend Liam continued their live stream, Ava's voice trembling with righteous anger. "Everyone, we're witnessing a shockingly humiliating scene at Seattle's Aurelia Grand Hotel. Share this now. No one can let this slide." And so the seeds of public outrage were sown, ready to erupt and sweep away the arrogant, prejudiced few, daring to stand in Imani Jackson's way. The moment Imani's chilling warning rang out, Ava Miller glanced at her companion and assistant, Liam Miller. Neither could believe what they were witnessing. Ava gave Liam a subtle signal to keep recording. He understood immediately, raising his phone and adjusting the frame to capture the entire Aurelia Grand Hotel lobby. Now, the stage for a truly shocking event. Ava quickly tapped "Go Live," inhaled deeply, and began speaking with just enough emotion to convey the tension and injustice unfolding. "Everyone, Liam and I are here at the Aurelia Grand Hotel in downtown Seattle. We're witnessing a serious incident of prejudice and discrimination live on camera. The woman you see standing there calmly but with undeniable presence has been treated in the most insulting way by this hotel's management." In an instant, the live stream's view count exploded. Comments flooded in, angry emojis popping up one after another. Ava swung the camera to David Harrison, Chloe Vance, and Ben Carter, who stood behind the desk with smug, contemptuous expressions. Ben, realizing he was on camera, didn't back down. He smirked, leaning forward and shouting into the lens, "Go ahead and film all you want. We're just following protocol to protect our genuine guests." David crossed his arms, clearly proud of Ben's boldness, then turned back to Imani and amplified the insult. "You need to face reality, Miss Jackson. This hotel is for the right class of people, and unfortunately, you're not one of them." Guests around the lobby froze, watching in stunned silence. Some whispered their disapproval, others looked bewildered. This was not what they expected at a luxury hotel like the Aurelia Grand. Meanwhile, Ava and Liam's viewer count had surged into the thousands. Comments poured in. "Unbelievable! A famous hotel acting like this. She's so composed, I couldn't stay that calm. Share this everywhere." Ava quickly scanned a few comments, then whispered to Liam. Liam panned to the safe. "They've locked her credit card inside." Liam complied, framing the cold steel safe beneath the desk, a stark symbol of injustice. He narrated clearly into the live stream. "Look at this. They've confiscated this guest's credit card with no valid reason, and she's standing there facing it all with incredible poise. We can't believe what's happening." The tension in the lobby ratcheted up another notch. A middle-aged man nearby stepped forward and spoke quietly, but still within Liam's shot. "Mr. Harrison, maybe you should stop. This could seriously damage the hotel's reputation." David waved him off dismissively, arrogance in his eyes. "I know what I'm doing. If she were innocent, she wouldn't be arguing here." Imani heard every cutting remark, but remained ice-cold and composed, letting their own actions indict them. Inside, though, she was already plotting her next move. Ava refocused the camera on Imani, her voice trembling with both anger and admiration. Everyone, look at this woman. Despite being publicly humiliated, she hasn't lost her composure. I don't know who she is, but I'm certain we're witnessing someone extraordinary with unmatched inner strength. Suddenly, a highlighted comment flashed by, which Liam read aloud. I recognize her. That's Imani Jackson, the CEO of Aurelia Hospitality, owner of this entire hotel chain. Ava and Liam stared at each other in astonishment. The revelation ignited the live stream. Shares soared and thousands of new comments poured in. Oh my God, they just humiliated their own CEO. Those employees' careers are toast. We're watching history in real time. Regaining her composure, Ava addressed the feed with newfound authority. Breaking news. The woman you're seeing is Imani Jackson, the owner of the Aurelia Grand Hotel chain. Share this live stream now. This truth needs to be exposed. In the lobby, expressions shifted from skepticism to horror as David, Chloe, and Ben realized the magnitude of their mistake. They hadn't made a small error. They'd ignited a storm that would sweep away everything they'd built. While the murmurs and shocked glances still swirled around her, Imani Jackson stood perfectly still. For a brief moment, her eyes flickered with something unspoken. Ava's words, "That woman is Imani Jackson, the owner of the Aurelia hotel chain," echoed in her mind. But Imani was pulled back into a memory she thought she'd buried deep. In that instant, time rewound more than a decade to a small suburb outside Atlanta. On a bitter winter's night, heavy snow blanketed the icy street. Imani, barely in her 20s and fresh out of college, carried a burning dream of building her own business. Yet at that moment, her dream felt impossibly distant. She was just an unknown young woman, no fame, no influence, and painfully not worthy of staying in any upscale hotel. She remembered that night vividly. Her old car had stalled in the freezing cold, and Imani had trudged through the blizzard to a tiny roadside inn, begging for a room. The receptionist's cold contempt cut deep into her soul. "I'm sorry, but we don't accept guests like you," he sneered, eyeing her from head to toe with blatant disdain. "Guests like me?" Imani had asked, her voice trembling with cold and outrage. "You know exactly what I mean," he replied, turning away and leaving her shivering in shame. That night, Imani huddled in her car, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. The isolation, the abandonment, the humiliation. They left a scar she would never forget, but also ignited a fierce determination in her heart. On that frigid, lonely night, she vowed never to allow anyone else to endure such pain. She promised herself that if she ever had the power to change things, she would create a place where every person, rich or poor, regardless of appearance, would be treated with absolute respect. And now, standing in the luxurious lobby of the Aurelia Grand Hotel, the empire she'd built, the bitter memory surged back with full force. But this time, she was no longer helpless. She was Imani Jackson, the powerful CEO of one of America's most prestigious hotel chains, with the strength to redefine the present. Yet, before her, David Harrison, Chloe Vance, and Ben Carter were reenacting her worst nightmare. Their words and contemptuous stares cut into her old wound as sharply as any knife. Ben, with a smirk, deliberately raised his voice for all to hear. "Stop the theatrics. This isn't for people pretending to be wealthy." Chloe stood nearby, arms crossed, her cold, satisfied smile more chilling than any insult. Meanwhile, David Harrison reveled in his perverse display of power, standing tall and proud as if to announce, "I am in control here." But Imani knew true power doesn't lie in cruel words or arrogance. True power is the ability to face injustice and refuse to bow. She'd learned that power through tears and icy nights in a broken-down car, and today she would use it to end a legacy of prejudice and unfairness. Imani's gaze sharpened with resolve. She lifted her chin, letting the chandelier's light illuminate her determined face. In a voice as calm as it was unyielding, she declared, "David, Ben, Chloe, you picked the wrong person to insult today. What's happening here will be the start of something monumental. I promise you that." Ava continued filming, her camera locked on Imani as thousands watched the live stream. They all felt it. Imani Jackson wasn't just standing up for herself, she was standing up for everyone who had ever faced injustice. In that moment, Imani became more than a woman. She became a symbol of resistance against discrimination and unfairness. And the thousands watching her on tiny screens placed their hope and trust in her. Imani knew this was just the beginning. A great battle lay ahead against the people before her and the flawed system they upheld. But she was ready, because this time she was no longer alone. As Imani Jackson's cold yet powerful declaration echoed through the hotel lobby, an unusual hush fell over the normally bustling space. Guests fell silent, their eyes fixed on her with a mix of anticipation and curiosity. In that brief moment, Imani became the center of attention, not because of her wealth or status, but because of the sheer strength of spirit she displayed in the face of blatant injustice and prejudice. But that silence shattered almost immediately. Chloe Vance, who had stood beside David all along with an arrogant, self-satisfied air, could no longer contain her anger and indignation. To her, Imani's calm resistance was a blatant provocation, striking at the core of her fragile pride. Without waiting for David or Ben to intervene, Chloe stormed forward. The sharp click of her high heels on the marble floor sounded like hammer blows. She planted herself inches from Imani, close enough for Imani to feel the heat of her fury in that razor-sharp gaze. "Have you said enough?" Chloe spat, each word punctuated like a blow. "We've politely asked you to leave, yet you stubbornly waste everyone's time." Before Imani could answer, Chloe yanked her arm in a harsh, provocative tug, as if trying to drag her out of the lobby right then and there. The force made Imani wise, but she refused to budge. Her eyes locked onto Chloe's with a glacial calm that silently warned she had crossed a line. Gasps and murmurs of outrage rippled through the lobby. Guests began whispering, voicing their discomfort. Liam Miller and Ava Miller closed in with their cameras, capturing every moment for their live stream. Liam's voice trembled with anger as he narrated, "Do you see this? This is how Aurelia Grand Hotel staff treat their guests, using force to drive them out." Viewers at home exploded in fury. Shares of the stream surged like a tidal wave, and thousands of critical comments flooded social media. "Unbelievable! This is beyond acceptable. A luxury hotel acting like this? I will never stay here." Amid the chaos, young receptionist Sarah Chen stood frozen behind the desk, eyes wide with shock and dismay. She had only been at Aurelia Grand for a few months and had believed this place embodied courtesy and respect. Now she saw Chloe's arrogance, David's cruelty, and Ben's complicity, and her faith in the hotel's values crumbling. Shame and doubt swirled in her mind. Is this really the workplace I believed in? Is this what Aurelia Grant stands for? Chloe still gripped Imani's arm, trying to force her forward. Yet Imani did not flinch. She met Chloe's gaze and spoke softly, but her words carried clear conviction. Chloe, I suggest you release me immediately. This will be the biggest mistake of your life. Blinded by rage, Chloe sneered back, each syllable dripping contempt. My biggest mistake would have been letting scum like you into this hotel in the first place. Ava's live stream captured every word, fueling an even more furious backlash. Outrageous! How dare they humiliate her like that? Chloe Vance, you'll pay dearly for this. Through it all, Imani remained composed, refusing to let Chloe's abuse shake her. But inside, she knew Chloe had crossed the final line, slipping from arrogance into outright aggression, from a petty mistake into career-ending disaster. Sarah's heart pounded. She realized Chloe's actions weren't just unprofessional, they were a gross violation of the hotel's ethics and core values. It was time to choose, remain silent, or stand up against this injustice. Sarah understood that her decision could change not only her own fate, but the course of everything unfolding before her. The lobby had become more than a standoff between Imani and Chloe. It was now the battleground for a larger fight between truth and prejudice, courage and cowardice, genuine values and false assumptions. That fragile line awaited someone brave enough to cross it, and Imani Jackson knew she was no longer alone. In the tense moment that gripped the hotel lobby, Sarah Chen felt her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She watched Chloe's hands clench Imani's arm roughly. Chloe's cruel words are still echoing like a warning bell. And in that instant, Sarah realized something crystal clear. She could no longer stand by and watch this injustice unfold without doing anything. Without another hesitation, Sarah drew a deep breath, stepped out from behind the front desk, and strode between Imani and Chloe. Her voice trembled, but rang with determination as she spoke, startling everyone around them. Chloe, please stop this at once. Miss Jackson did indeed reserve the penthouse suite. I personally verified her booking this morning. We are making a grave mistake. All eyes turned to Sarah in astonishment. Chloe froze, eyes widening with fury at this unexpected challenge from a subordinate. David Harrison's face went from smug to furious in an instant. He stepped forward, his gaze like a dagger aimed at Sarah. Sarah, do you know what you're saying? Are you trying to ruin this hotel's reputation? If you dare interfere again, I will fire you right here. David's words were ice cold, but Sarah stood her ground. She lifted her chin, her eyes burning with a newfound confidence she'd barely known she possessed. I'm prepared to face whatever consequences, Mr. Harrison, but I cannot let the truth be buried. What's happening here is wrong. We cannot treat a guest this way. Ava and Liam still live streaming, moved closer to capture every detail. Liam's voice, brimming with excitement and support, spoke into the camera. You're witnessing real courage from a hotel employee. Sarah Chen is defending a guest even as she's threatened with dismissal. This is true service spirit. Shaken by Sarah's defiance, Chloe spun on her heel and snapped at Sarah with venom. Sarah, how long have you worked here daring to lecture us? Step aside now, or you'll pay the same price she will. But Sarah did not back down. She stood firm, locking eyes with both Chloe and David. If losing my job is the cost of standing up for what's right, so be it. but I will never be complicit in discrimination. Meanwhile, Imani remained utterly composed. Calmly, she retrieved her phone from her jacket pocket and made a call with deliberate slowness, every action measured as if following a predetermined plan. Seconds later, a familiar voice answered, her personal assistant, Maria Torres. "Miss Jackson, this is Maria. How can I help?" Imani spoke clearly and firmly, loud enough for David, Chloe, and Ben to hear every word. Maria initiated a company's special protocol immediately. Gather all security camera footage from this hotel and upload it to our internal system. Then notify legal authorities so they can prepare the full case. We'll need it today. Maria's reply was concise and decisive. "Understood, ma'am. I'm on it right away." At Imani's words, David's expression flickered with concern before he forced back his arrogance. "You think a phone call will scare us? Don't be so deluded." But Chloe couldn't hide her unease. She released Imani's arm and instinctively took a step back, her confidence shaken. Ben, too, recognized the gravity of the situation. He fell silent, anxiety creeping into his posture. Ava moved her camera close to Imani, capturing this critical moment. Her voice quivered with excitement. "Folks, CEO Imani Jackson has activated Aurelia's special protocol. That means every ounce of evidence of misconduct by this hotel's management and staff is being preserved. We're witnessing a major turning point." The lobby's atmosphere grew even more charged as nearby guests visibly sided with Imani and Sarah. Some stepped forward to show their support and protect the two women standing up for justice. In that instant, Sarah felt the warmth of courage and the power of solidarity like never before. She turned to Imani, her eyes shining with gratitude and awe. "Thank you, Miss Jackson. I don't know if I would have had the courage to speak up without seeing your strength." Imani offered a gentle smile and placed a reassuring hand on Sarah's shoulder. Her voice was sincere and uplifting. "Sarah, you are the bravest person here today. You've just proven that courage always triumphs over injustice." Now David, Chloe, and Ben truly grasped the enormity of their mistake. The line they once thought thin had become an abyss, and with one more misstep, everything they'd built could vanish in an instant. But there was no turning back. Imani's decision had unleashed a wave of resistance, and the real battle for justice was only just beginning. The air in the hotel lobby grew heavier and more tense than ever after Imani's decisive declaration. David Harrison stood frozen, a flicker of confusion crossing his face, something no one had ever seen before. His initial confidence was starting to crack as Imani's words were proven true. Every one of his actions was being carefully and clearly recorded. Across from him, Liam Miller never took his eyes off his phone, live streaming every detail. His gaze drifted to the cold steel safe behind the front desk where Ben Carter had brazenly stashed Imani's credit card. And suddenly, he realized something important. He swung the camera closer to the safe, adjusting the angle so viewers could clearly see the card inside. His voice broke the silence with excitement. "Broadcast live for everyone to hear. Everyone, I just discovered something huge. The credit card the hotel staff locked in the safe is a special VIP card labeled Owner. That means the woman standing before us, Imani Jackson, is the owner of this Aurelia Grand Hotel." Immediately, the lobby erupted in murmurs of shock and outrage. David Harrison, Chloe Vance, and Ben Carter all went pale, their eyes wide with panic as this shocking truth was exposed to both the on-site guests and the online audience. David stammered, trying and failing to regain his composure. "Nah, no way. This must be a mistake." But his words were drowned out by the growing chorus of whispers. Ben Carter trembled as he turned to David in alarm. "David, the card really does say owner." I didn't check properly." Chloe, normally the most arrogant of the three, now looked horrified. She stumbled backward toward the desk as if searching for something to steady herself. Yet no one dared come to her defense. Ava Miller stepped closer to Imani, her camera focused on the hotel owner with unmistakable respect and admiration in her eyes. She inhaled deeply and proclaimed for all to hear, "Listen up, everyone. The woman you've just watched be insulted and mistreated by this hotel staff is none other than Imani Jackson, the owner and CEO of Aurelia Hospitality, which includes the very Aurelia Grand Hotel we're standing in." Each word struck like a bullet to David, Chloe, and Ben's pride. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still as every gaze fixed on Imani, who stood tall at the center of a rapidly intensifying storm of public outrage. Nearby guests began to voice their anger and disbelief. Unbelievable! How could any staff treat their own CEO like that? "I've stayed here countless times, but after this, I'll never come back." Some guests even moved forward to show solidarity with Imani and Sarah. "Miss Jackson was completely on your side. These people must be held accountable." Faced with the crowd's reaction, David was utterly at a loss. He scanned the room for support, but found only accusatory and disappointed looks. In a moment of weakness, his voice dropped to a whisper, his arrogance gone. "Miss Jackson, I really didn't know who you were. It was just a small misunderstanding." Imani cut him off calmly but firmly, her words carrying undeniable authority. "A small misunderstanding, David. You are insulting and discriminating against a guest who happens to be your owner. A small misunderstanding. Number. This is exactly why I built this hotel chain, to ensure no one ever endures what you put me through today." Her gaze swept over the three staff members as she continued, voice steady and resolute. "From this moment on, you will face the full consequences of your actions, and I promise that every guest who has ever been treated unfairly here will receive the justice they deserve." Instantly, hundreds of messages of support flooded Ava and Liam's livestream. "This is incredible. Now that's a true CEO, a symbol of fairness and courage. We stand with you, Imani Jackson. These people must be punished." As David, Chloe, and Ben stood paralyzed by shock and fear, Sarah Chen looked at Imani with shining admiration. She realized that her decision today, no matter the personal cost, had paved the way for the values Imani represented. In that moment, Imani knew she hadn't just turned the tide in a small battle. She had ignited a true revolution to overhaul a flawed system, and she was no longer alone. Her cold, powerful declaration sounded like a death knell for David, Chloe, and Ben. At that moment, the busy lobby seemed to freeze. Every eye was fixed on the three employees who moments before had brimmed with arrogance and now wore only confusion and fear. Wasting no time, Imani turned to Sarah and gave her an encouraging nod. Then she lifted her phone again and spoke to her assistant with sharper resolve than ever. "Maria, I want you to terminate David Harrison, Chloe Vance, and Ben Carter from all our personnel and management systems immediately." Revoke their system access right now and notify legal to prepare their dismissal files. Maria's clear, decisive reply came through instantly. Yes, Miss Jackson, I'll take care of it right away. At that instant, David's phone buzzed wildly in his pocket. His system access had been officially revoked. Flustered, he pulled out his phone to find a bright red warning on the screen. Your system access has been disabled. David's face went from ashen to beet red with rage and shock. He looked at Chloe and Ben, each checking their own phones and realizing the same fate. The power they once wielded had vanished in an instant, leaving only the guests' disapproving stares and simmering anger. Chloe trembled, her eyes wide with fear and indignation. She stumbled toward Imani, her voice small and desperate. Miss Jackson, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. This was all a misunderstanding. We never meant this to happen. Imani regarded her coldly but clearly. Chloe, you've had countless chances to treat me and every guest properly, but your arrogance and prejudice blinded you. Now your apologies are far too late. Ben rushed in, voice quivering, hoping for mercy. We truly regret it. Please give us a chance to make this right. But Imani remained unmoved. Her gaze was icy, offering no forgiveness. Addressing everyone watching live, she announced, I cannot tolerate a staff that scorns the fundamental values of hospitality. You are no longer fit to represent Aurelia Hospitality. David, completely unmoved, made one last desperate plea. You can't do this. I've managed here for years. You can't just destroy us over one small incident. Instantly, the guests erupted. One small incident you call discrimination and humiliation of a guest small. Unbelievable. I'll never return if these people remain employed. Ava and Liam captured every moment. Their live stream flooded with thousands of comments praising Imani's decisive action. This is a real CEO, always on the side of what's right. Justice at last. Imani Jackson is amazing. Overwhelmed by the crowd's response, David staggered back, stunned. Chloe and Ben hung their heads in utter shame. Nearby guests voiced their support for Sarah Chen, too. Sarah, that was brave of you to speak up. We're so proud of you. Sarah smiled softly, warmth flooding her as she realized she had done the right thing, no matter the cost. Imani stepped forward, her voice ringing with final authority. Effective immediately, you three are no longer part of Aurelia Grand Hotel or the Aurelia Hospitality family. Remember today, the day your arrogance and prejudice cost you everything. A heavy silence fell over the lobby as Imani finished. Guests stood quietly, admiration and satisfaction in their eyes now that justice had been served. In that moment, David, Chloe, and Ben understood they had not only lost their jobs, but also their reputations and dignity before everyone present. Any further excuses or apologies would be meaningless. Their actions had crossed an irredeemable line, and they could only accept the irreversible consequences. In the suffocating silence that followed Imani's firm declaration, Sarah Chen's quiet but resolute voice suddenly cut through the tension that filled the lobby. Her eyes shone with a mix of determination and long-pent disappointment as she fixed her gaze on David Harrison, now a broken shell of lost authority. Miss Jackson, Sarah began, her voice clear, though tinged with emotion. I think everyone needs to know what has really been happening here all this time. Every eye snapped to Sarah. Imani offered her an encouraging nod, silently urging her to reveal the painful truths. Sarah drew a deep breath. summoning her courage to continue. David Harrison has discriminated against female guests more than once, especially those who dress plainly or are people of color. I speak from first-hand experience. I've seen it happen, and I've heard his instructions myself. A ripple of astonished whispers swept the lobby. David's face went pale as he stammered in denial. "What are you saying, Sarah? Don't spread such outrageous lies." Sarah did not flinch. Her eyes remained steady as she replied, "I'm not lying, David. Every time a woman or a guest of color makes a reservation here, you tell us. Those people don't bring in profit. Always find an excuse to turn them away. Chloe and Ben can confirm this too." Chloe suddenly broke down in tears, her shoulders trembling. The strength and arrogance she'd shown moments ago vanished entirely. Through her smeared makeup, she choked out, "It's true. I followed David's orders. He told me to judge guests by their appearance, their clothes, and their skin color. At first, I refused, but he threatened to fire me if I didn't comply." Chloe's confession hit the lobby like a slow-moving bomb. Liam and Ava's live stream exploded with furious comments, and their viewer count spiked dramatically. Ben stood motionless, his eyes cast down in shame. No words needed. The truth was clear. From the crowd of guests gathered nearby, a middle-aged woman stepped forward, anger etched across her face. "I was treated the same way here. When I came to check in, the desk told me my room had a technical issue, then handed it to a white guest right in front of me." A young man spoke up immediately, his voice equally angry. "I was refused service at the hotel bar even though I was a paying customer. The only explanation I got was, 'Your appearance doesn't meet our standards.'" One by one, guests shared their own painful experiences. Years of hidden indignities now laid bare for everyone to hear. David stood frozen, the weight of their accusations crashing down on him. He attempted a feeble defense, voice stripped of its former confidence. "You don't understand. I was just trying to maintain this hotel's upscale image. I never meant to hurt anyone." Imani cut him off in a cold, unwavering tone. "David, no upscale image justifies prejudice and injustice. Your actions violate the core ethics and values of Aurelia Hospitality. No excuse is acceptable." Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as she added, "Pained, but resolute. I tried to raise these issues with management before, but David silenced and threatened me every time. I'm sorry I stayed quiet too long." Imani placed a comforting hand on Sarah's shoulder, her voice soft but strong. "Sarah, you have no reason to apologize. What matters is that you found the courage to speak up today, and because of you, these wrongs will never happen again." Ava trained the live stream camera on Imani's face as she addressed thousands of viewers with heartfelt conviction. "Friends, this is the painful truth we cannot ignore. Thanks to the bravery of Imani Jackson and Sarah Chen, these terrible secrets are finally revealed. Share this live stream far and wide so no one ever has to suffer like this again." Surrounded by the outpouring of accusations and outrage, David, Chloe, and Ben stood utterly defeated. They realized that the injustices they'd hidden had now engulfed them in a pit of public shame. In that moment, Imani Jackson felt more strongly than ever the great mission and responsibility resting on her shoulders. She was no longer merely the owner of a hotel empire. She had become a powerful voice against injustice and discrimination, and she knew that from this point on, everything would change, and that would be her true measure of success.